Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, pod with me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of our Twin Peaks podcast, Fire Pod with Me. Today, we're going to be talking about part 16 of The Return of Twin Peaks. Spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. Whoa! A lot of stuff happened today. My name's Vinny. With me, as always, is my friend Steven.
Yeah.
And let's just go ahead and start talking about this big ol' lug of an episode. First of all, what'd you think overall?
I think outside of the Ed and Norma scene, this is the most satisfying episode.
Right. For like pandering to nostalgia, 100%. Gonna be the best episode for people so far, anyway.
No, definitely. And the way it's all utilized too, like it all comes together so well. Like this is the episode we've been waiting for. We just didn't know it.
Right. It starts off a little weird. I mean, which is a good thing in the realm of Twin Peaks. But yeah. Do you want to talk about how it starts?
Yeah, sure. So we see Scale and Scale Coop, as Vin has called them, Scale Coop and Richard driving at night, as Scale Coop likes to travel. Have we ever seen that dude driving during the day, besides like when he wrecks his car at the beginning?
No. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, only travels at night. They're driving, and then they pull off onto the side of the road, and like they're on some sort of like back road, and he Evil Coop like turns on his like overhead lights, and they get out, and Richard's like, "Hey, what are we doing here?" And Scale Coop says that 2 of the 3 coordinates that he has match to that spot, correct?
Right.
And meanwhile, to quote Laura Palmer, meanwhile, good old Jerry is somehow, I don't know at what point in their interaction he arrives, but he, as he's been lost in the woods running around, he somehow ends up at the same spot that they're at. And he stops like far in the distance so neither of them can see him, and he kind of stops and like he's like, "Oh, people!" And then I don't know, he must realize that some fishy shit's going on, because he has his binoculars and he starts taking a gander. And,
attempting to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's only seeing like little bits of it, and he's not really sure what's going on.
I love that, like, when we see him, though, like, he's, like, sprinting from over, like, another hill.
Yeah.
Like, the first time, he's just coming at us. Kind of like the shot from Get Out of the guy sprinting towards the camera.
Yeah. And you would think, like, I thought when he came out of the woods that he would just go home. Nope. Not the case. That's what's so funny to me about it. Is like, they're relatively out. I mean, they got to be close to Twin Peaks, but they're certainly not in Twin Peaks at this point. So I really don't know. Do you think they're somewhere like in Spokane, or because I mean it's a pretty like hilly to make up a word there.
I don't think it would be all the way in Spokane. I would have to look at the map again from where Twin Peaks is and where Spokane is, because I mean I guess the closest international airport is Spokane,
right?
But I'm not sure if that's.
I mean, we I don't want to underestimate Jerry. Maybe this man's a marathon runner.
I like to think that it was fucking South Dakota. He got all the way to South Dakota.
That's crazy. I mean, but it's not that crazy, right? I mean, what if Jerry accidentally, I don't know, stumbled across something and jumped around a little bit? Is that possible?
Perhaps. I'm pretty positive those are the coordinates that Diane was looking at, though, and they were in Twin Peaks.
Right. Yeah. because later in the episode we see that she remembers them. Anyway, so they're they're talking, Coop and Richard. Scale Coop and Richard, and Scale Coop is like, go up to that rock. That's where the coordinates should be. There's like this big rock, and Richard, being the good boy that he is, gets up there, and
so I'm gonna do it for my dad. Not the exact quote, but probably what he was thinking.
That's what he's thinking for sure.
Yeah.
And then
Make him proud.
Make him proud. Are you proud of me, Pop Pop?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love that Scale Cooper says is, I'm 25 years your elder. Go check it out.
Right. And that kind of, did that give you a little bit of like, in that moment, specifically that moment, did that kind of give you a confirmation like, oh, this is Papa?
No, I didn't get that confirmation until a little bit later, but I guess we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh. But then again, it's just been 25 years, so who knows? But anyway, he gets up there, and then he's like, I think I'm almost there. And right when he gets to the spot, just like a fire or like a ball of energy or electricity.
Yeah, it's like a blast of electricity is what I would call it.
Yeah, like lights up his stomach and just like electrocutes his whole body until he explodes or like vanishes. I would say more so explodes than vanishes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
He's done. He doesn't go anywhere else, I don't think. Unless
I thought maybe we would see like him in the Black Lodge or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that didn't happen.
But we can't rule it out though.
Right.
Who knows? But yeah, right after he dies, there's this moment where Scale Coop's just kind of watching, not really with any emotion. It kind of, I would like to maybe watch this scene again. Again, as we've said before, this is like it's very darkly lit. It's at night anyway. So it's kind of hard to read all of his emotions. For a second, it almost looked like his eyes got a little watery, but I doubt that. Because
I doubt that too.
Yeah, like that's what I thought at first watching it, but then he just kind of very coldly says, "Goodbye, my son," and then he just walks away. And well, before he walks away, he sends a text to Diane, but Jerry's just watching this through the binoculars. And just
backwards. He's watching.
Right.
He's looking through one hole of a backwards binocular.
Yeah. And he say, "Dear God," right?
Yeah, and then he starts banging the binoculars on the ground and saying, "Bad binoculars."
Yeah. Yeah, and then before Scale Coop leaves, he sends a text with a very old school smiley face.
Colon, dash, and then a half bracket.
Yeah, do you think David Lynch if David Lynch texts, do you think those are the sorts of smiley faces he uses, and he just thought that was like a normal thing to throw in there?
I can't believe they made a whole movie about these things.
The Emoji Movie, directed by David Lynch. Oh no. So, yeah, that happened. Was that shocking to you? We kind of
literally
we knew,
and figuratively.
That's true. We had predicted though that Richard was Evil Coop's son.
Right. I think most people had. It's not a hard thing to kind of assume. Mm-hmm. This whole episode kind of validates a lot of theories that we had and other people had.
For sure.
Obviously, we'll get to all the other ones later, but yeah, the whole Cooper and Richard thing. I hope we get to kind of understand that and how it all happened a little bit more, and I'm sure we will later on when we get more with Audrey.
Yeah,
this
especially
week,
like how this episode ended, I think we'll know more about it.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, not to touch on it too much because there's more that goes into this later in the episode. But I mean, it's crazy to me that like a lot of these things that would have been like big, like there's multiple elements or parts in this episode that would be considered big twists or like the big twist in a lot of shows, but like it's not. I don't want to say underwhelming because that like almost like undermines the storytelling of it, but it just shows that all these like things that again like other people would consider like big twists in series like are just like little pieces of the story in Twin Peaks. Like it's so like all we get to know that Richard was Evil Coop's son is just goodbye my son, and that's it. And again, I'm sure we'll know more, but it's that just kind of blew my mind. Okay, so moving on, we see Hutch, and what's Jennifer Jason Leigh's character's name again?
Chantel
and Hutch. And this was kind of a conundrum. This is kind of like earlier in our episodes we had talked about this idea of like a final showdown. Mm-hmm. With all these elements, and I think this was kind of what I was talking about, or what we were talking about,
right?
In this episode. But anyway, we see them outside of Dougie's, kind of staking out, and they're wearing like all white jumpsuits, like they're ready to not leave any fibers or DNA or anything, like they're ready to go in there and kill him. And when they're out there waiting, Chantel, what's she eating? Like Cheetos or something?
Oh yeah, she's
Cheetos
got
again.
She's got some Cheetos on her.
Yeah. But yeah, we see them kind of staking out, and like Hutch brings up that one of like somebody that they knew died, and he owed him money.
Yeah.
Is that right? And
yeah.
She was like, "Do you feel bad about that?" He's like, "Kinda." Not really. So yeah, while they're there, the FBI shows up. Your boys.
Oh yeah.
What? And so once they show up, they try to get in, but they realize no one's home. And what does your boy say?
Oh well, Wilson's like looking through the window, and he's like, oh, "Gee, I don't think anybody's home." And the other guy's like, "How'd you figure that out, you doofus? Wilson, you insufferable son of a bitch, go find a car." Like, starts yelling at him. I love how much that guy hates Wilson. I need to learn that guy's name, though.
Uh-huh. It reminds me very much of, like, in, like, On Cinema and stuff, when Tim Heidecker will, like, he just goes into that, like, blind rage and just starts yelling. But it's just really funny that, like, that's his whole character.
Yeah.
He's constantly mad. So, yeah, the FBI kind of comes and goes, and they're gonna stake out the place, the FBI, and he's like, "Well, back your car up and stake out the place and wait to see if they show up. I'm gonna go to the insurance place, right, where Dougie works."
Yep.
Okay, so we see that, and then we get a shot of Dougie in the hospital. He's in a coma, but his vital signs are good. Badlam Bud's there. Janie E and Sonny E. Oh man, Sonny D. No, Janie E and Sonny Jim are they're by Dougie's side as he's in the coma, and Badlam Bud's there, and he's telling Janie E he's gonna be good. He's gonna come out of this, and then all of a sudden our boys, the Mitchum brothers, show up. They're there to check on him, and that's the first time Janie E and Sonny Jim meet them, right? Because they like thank him for the gym set and all that stuff, in the car, and they bring in Candy and the girls, and bring in some catered food, very nice of the Mitchum brothers. So yeah, they're there just to like check on Dougie, and I think if I'm not mistaken, do we stay with them? Like, do they leave and then Bud gets the call? Like they're there and then they leave
Well,
and
yeah.
then
So the Mitchum brothers lean in and they're like, because they're bringing food because they want to help Janie. They're like, you don't want to eat hospital food, but you don't want to cook either. So we
Yeah.
brought you some finger sandwiches, which I love how excited they are about the fucking finger sandwiches. But
uh-huh.
and then they ask Janie E if they can borrow a key because they're gonna go stock the house up, which I think is hilarious.
Oh, right.
That she's so quick to trust like these two.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, they've done so much for him, but it's just kind of funny that, like, in reality, they're still mobsters. Like,
Yeah.
she's giving her house key to some mobsters to go and like fucking fill up their house. Anyway, yeah.
Especially
so the Mitchum brothers
if you,
take off with the key.
Right. That's right. But it's funny too because like now that you say that, like when you compare her character at the beginning of the season to now, like when she goes and negotiates with those two like gangsters in the park, like she is not having it. Like she's taking no shit, and she doesn't really. She's very just like quick to not trust people and like brush stuff off. But now that I don't know, now that she has Coop or not, Coop, Dougie, but I don't know. It shows a more softer side of her as she's like kind of nurtured Dougie, I think, a little bit, and so yeah, she was just like very quick to give them the key, like, oh yeah, thanks, very. I don't know, it's kind of funny.
And so for a moment there, it cuts from like the machines in Dougie's hospital room to Gordon Cole standing in his room with all the machines that presumably do FBI work, for lack of a better term, and they kind of echo each other in like a weird way, and we just kind of see a contemplative Gordon Cole standing there, and then we cut back to Dougie and Janie E and Sonny Jim.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe Gordon Cole somehow felt something?
That's an interesting point because, like, I mean, it's possible. I feel like a lot of the things that happen in Twin Peaks are just like, I was actually just reading a little thing, not to go off on a tangent here, but David Foster Wallace, while he was alive, he was such a big David Lynch fan, but he was talking about there's something in David Lynch's work where like people can be good and bad, and they kind of like that line is very blurred, but there's something in his work where there's always these forces at play, whether it's like romance or darkness, where they just kind of occur and people kind of fall into it, if that makes sense. But I feel like the same thing goes for like intuition, where like I don't know, I wouldn't doubt it that they can kind of feel when something's up, but who knows, that's just speculation. But yeah, back at the hospital we see Sonny Jim and Janie E, and in a very little kid like move, Sonny Jim's like, Mom, I need to go pee, and so Janie E takes him out of the room, and Battling Bud is there, and he's looking at him, and he gets a call from what's his name? His like assistant's name that's always got the coffee.
Yeah, what is that? Was it Jimmy? Is that right?
No, I don't know if it's Jimmy.
Is it J name? I did not take super great notes on this episode.
That's all right. I don't think he's very important anyway. But anyway, yeah, he gets a call from him saying that the FBI was there to. He showed up at the office to look for. They were looking for Dougie, and Badland Bud's just like, oh, okay, and so
yeah,
he doesn't
He's
really
in a coma.
Yeah. So I think from there we kind of get the confirmation that the FBI is headed towards the hospital to pick up Dougie. So now we're back in the neighborhood at Dougie's house, where we have on one side of the street we have Hutch and Chantel staking out, and then we also have the FBI on the other side of the street doing their job, and the Mitchum brothers show up and they kind of stock up the house, and I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was Hutch or Chantel that says it. I think it was Hutch who's like, any one of those Dougie?
Yeah, and then Chantel's like, does any of them look like our boss?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I guess not.
How do you...
And he's...
Sorry.
Well, one of my favorite parts is he's just like, I mean, like, you don't have to get so mad. And she's like holding the bag of like Doritos or whatever the hell she's eating at this point. She's like, it's the last bag, Hutch.
Yeah.
It's the last fucking bag.
Yeah. Do you think like this is just purely for the sake of asking, but since their characters aren't too bright, how do you think Evil Coop has like described the situation to him? Like, do you think they're under the impression that Dougie's like his twin, and he wants to kill his brother or something? Because I feel like they wouldn't understand.
Oh hell no.
You
know? That's a great question.
Dude, he has to dumb it down for him. I'm assuming that would make sense to me, but
yeah. So
yeah, they're a little confused because Chantel's like, it's like a fucking circus or something, as Candy and the other girls get out. So they stock up the food and then they leave. Well, no, actually they don't leave. They just go into the house and we kind of don't see him for a second. And again, this is kind of like what we were talking about, where it felt like there was a sort of showdown where it's like all of these different groups who've interacted with Dougie or are looking for Dougie are all at this crossroads. But the way that it's resolved is hilarious because it doesn't go how you think it would.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, Chantel and Hutch are sitting there, and this car like pulls up like in front of him, and he's like, "Hey," this dude gets out and he's like, "Hey, you're in my driveway." What does Tim Ross say to him, Hutch?
He says, "Well, I'm not even fucking close to your fucking driveway." And Chantel's like, "Go fuck yourself." And the dude just sort of looks at him and goes, "I move car." And you're not really sure. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a fish in my percolator. Sorry about that. But you're not really sure if he's going to move his car or if he's going to forcibly move their car.
Yeah.
And it's the latter. And he just starts revving his tiny ass little car into their big van.
Yeah.
Just tires screeching, the bumper of their van's kind of falling off, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And Chantel just grabs a gun.
And yeah, she hits him like in the arm, right? She shoots him in the arm.
Yeah.
And he's...
Or you know what? I think she misses him. And then I think he shoots her in retaliation in the arm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if she like nicked him because he quickly gets out of the car and goes to like his trunk. But once
where he's got a fucking Uzi.
Yeah, and so he fires at them, and they start shooting back. Hutch starts shooting back, and the FBI is just like, "What the fuck?" Like what is going on?
Mitchum brothers get out of the house with their guns, just sort of like watching the situation fold out.
Yeah. I'll have to ask you some of their quotes, but they, Hutch and Chantel are like, "Let's get out of here," and so they reverse and they start peeling off, and as they do, the anonymous car driver, the insurance man, whatever his name is, he just lights up the car like fucking. Several shots go into it.
Through the side, through the back, just eviscerates them.
Yeah, and then you like...
You think he's done, and then he fucking puts in another clip and just goes at it again.
Yeah, because after he like shoots off that first round, I think you kind of tell that Chantel's dead.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of slouched over the wheel. And then, yeah, he puts in that second round, and then Hutch just kind of gets lit up and just gets blasted. And it's a very fitting end for their characters. It's just, again, it's one of those things where like you expect there to be this kind of shootout with all of these, an inclusive shootout, I should say, with all of
Yeah.
the different groups, the FBI, the Mitchum brothers, and them. Not the case. Just a stranger just murders them both.
Everyone's present.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which yeah, like you said, is perfect. And then I think it's Jim Belushi's character that says, "The fuck kind of neighborhood is this?"
And the other Mitchum brothers like, these people are under a lot of stress or something like that, right? Way too good. Yeah, they're just kind of like ducked behind with their guns. Oh shit, way too funny. I want to bring this up later too. Yeah, the FBI gets out of the car and then tells the man to like put his hands on his head, and he does, right? He complies.
Yeah. Drops the gun, puts his hand on his head.
And that's kind of that. Like, that's how that scene ends.
The Mitchum brothers, Robert Knepper's character is like, "Put your gun down. Let's just get the fuck out of here."
Yeah. So yeah, they we're assuming they're heading back to the hospital at this point, but we cut back to the hospital, and while battling Bud's just in the room, with Dougie, the great like the sounds that were emitting earlier in the episode or earlier in the series and the season have it starts up and it kind of leads him out of the room, right? So do you want to talk about that at all? Do you want to kind of touch on what we think that is before we go into what happens?
You know what that is a good question. It could be a number of things. It could have something to do with how, like Josie is stuck in like a fucking doorknob, kind of thing. Because to me, I guess I'm gonna touch on this a little bit later. I have a theory about all that jazz. But like,
okay.
I think that like it might be a lodge spirit or somebody who's been affected by a lodge spirit, maybe even Cooper himself, that has like, or maybe even Mike himself, leading Battling Bud out so he can talk to Cooper in private. I think that's somehow how they can like interact without physically doing something, if that makes sense.
Right. I was actually going to say, I think, and we can go into your theory later, but I think it might be Mike. I think it's just kind of the same way that he kind of guided, we find out how big of a role Mike has been playing this whole time, but the way that he kind of, guided Dougie in the casino and then with the paperwork, I think it might be his way of guiding people as well. He wanted Bud out of the room, and then, I don't know if he necessarily wanted Ben to know something about the in the lodge in the Great Northern, correct? Or when James or Jimmy goes down into the boiler room and sees the two doors. I think all of those things. I don't know if the Ben and like Jimmy James thing kind of overlap or not. But yeah, like I think they're all being guided to they're supposed to see these things. But anyway, going back to the story, it takes Bud out of the room, and then all of a sudden Mike, like Dougie springs up, right? Or do we see Mike appear first?
Mike appear first. And then, Dougie springs right up.
Mike appears like transparent on a chair. And he tells
You are awake? And Coop responds, 100%. And it's so good to hear him speak fluently and coherently.
Yeah. And yeah, so he tells him he's awake, and this scene is just incredible, man. Um, and he tells him that he's awake, but the other one is still
Yeah.
out there, right? Or
Yeah, he didn't
something
go
along
back
those
in.
lines. He didn't go back in. Obviously referring to Mr. C,
Yeah, the
aka
slide man.
Scale Coop.
Yeah.
The slide
Rip
man
to Lil
himself. Yikes. Uh, Mike gives Coop the ring, as we've kind of, it all makes sense that it's leading back to this, that the way that Coop has to get Scale Coop back in is put the ring on him.
Yes. But before he gets the ring, he asks, "Do you have the seed?" He asks Mike if he has the seed, and so Mike hands him the little gold orb that emitted from Dougie when he went into the Black Lodge, and Cooper hands him like a strand of his hair or something and says, "I need you to make another one." So somehow. Maybe that's how tulpas are manufactured, or I guess that's what we're calling them now, doppelgangers, tulpas. Is through that seed, and maybe a piece of their DNA, and they're able to make these doppelgangers. And so it's kind of bizarre to me. Like, how do you think Scale Coop managed to make that happen? Do you think that Mike is sort of a, like, maybe he doesn't have a side, or do you think like maybe Bob was able to do the same thing?
That's interesting. That's a good point, because, man, we could go into this for a minute, because if we're not mistaken, you get 25 once you leave the Black Lodge. You get 25 years. Is that right? And then you have to go back in.
That's sure. Yeah, I suppose.
I feel like there was something with that, and because I was reading, or somebody was speculating that maybe Dougie was created to try and give Bob more time, or the doppelganger more time before he had to go back in. But do we have definitive proof that it was Coop, or it was Evil Coop, that created Dougie and not Coop himself? Is that possible?
That could be possible. That could definitely be possible.
Because the way that he seemed so familiar with it by pulling his hair out and was like, "Do you have the seed?
Right.
I need you to make another one." It's like maybe this was part of Coop's plan all along. Maybe it's all been leading up to this, and he knew. Because, I mean, obviously we see that Coop has kind of always been there, under the surface as Dougie, with the gun when he takes out Ike the Spike. The coffee, the pie, when he hears Gordon Cole at the end. That's what finally, snaps him out of it, basically. But, so he basically says, make another one, and then Mike disappears, right?
Yeah, yep.
And so, Coop is back, which is amazing. I can't explain, like, the feeling of relief that I had, and like satisfaction, which just intensifies throughout the rest of the episode. But because you start to wonder if it, like, I don't know, for me, I was like, are we really going to go this whole series? And then, because I almost started to think that it was going to be like this ambiguous ending where maybe Coop is back, maybe he's not, and it's up for you to decide. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I was expecting maybe that, or even like the final, like, thing of like the title of the final episode is "What's Your Name?" I believe, or something like that. And I thought maybe the last line of the series would be Special Agent Dale Cooper, and it would just be him waking up at the very end. But thankfully that's not the case. We're gonna see some Coop action for the next 2 hours that we have.
Yeah. Man, that's what's so, because as this episode was going on, and as you'll know from how the rest of the episode plays out, I was like, man, this could be the end, and I would be like, it wouldn't be the complete wrap up that I wanted, but it would be satisfying.
Right.
You know what
Definitely.
I mean? So everything else just kind of feels like bonus now to me, I guess. But anyway, he kind of wakes up and he's sitting up, and Janie E and Sonny Jim come back, and he says hello to them, and he says hello to Bud, and he's like, I need to go. I need a flight to Spokane.
Yeah. Call the Mitchum
Well, he
brothers.
says that. Yeah, call the Mitchum brothers. I need a flight to Spokane, which, shout out to Spokane. Very cool to have, like, I don't know, a town that that's so near and dear to both of us.
That I currently live in, and pretty neat stuff.
Pretty cool. So yeah, he needs to go to Spokane, he says, and the nurse is like, no, you need to lay back down. He's like, I check my vitals, I am good.
And she's like, they're like, do you think that's a good idea? And the nurse is like, I think it's a great idea after she checks his vitals.
Oh man. So this was all like very satisfying, and then we kind of go back down to like
but hold on, before that we get the beautiful one-liner. Badland Bud's like, but what about the FBI?
Oh.
And Coop turns and goes, I am the FBI.
Yeah.
Love it.
That was so good. He might as well have put the thumbs up, because that's what it felt like. You know?
In my brain he did.
Yeah. Like the very infamous gif that everybody uses of Coop doing the thumbs up, like it's the exact same demeanor. It's like, yes, so damn satisfying. And so yeah, again, a very high note, and then we're back in South Dakota with Diane, and she's sitting at the bar and just kind of drinking by herself, as we've kind of seen her. I don't know, she's done this throughout the series. She's always at the bar drinking. And she receives the text that Scale Coop sent right after Richard exploded. Which is, oh man,
right.
That's just a weird thing to say.
And you know what? And I forgot to touch on that, but I feel like this might be a good time to.
Okay.
That we're assuming that's the entrance to the White Lodge. Is that what happens to, like, if Wyndham Earl were to have found the entrance to the White Lodge, probably the same thing would have happened to him, right? Like, is that kind of what you suspect?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because that was the whole thing with, we've kind of knocked on season 2 a lot, and rightfully so, I guess. But if season 2's influence is anything, it's Wyndham Earl looking for the coordinates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would assume so. I mean, Wyndham Earl ultimately met his fate when he got a little too cocky, but I think so. I don't know. I never really, as I watched the episode, I never really thought that's what happens when you try to get into the White Lodge. But now that you say it out loud, it makes sense.
Well, like, if you're a dickhead, like,
yeah,
like, because, like, as I don't know if it was, I think it was Wyndham Earl that said, like, love opens one lodge and fear opens the other.
Right.
And obviously, Lil Dicky doesn't have any love in his heart. He's a heartless. Yeah. Well, he was a heartless Fruit Loop dingus, and he got fried for it.
Might have to name the episode that.
Heartless Fruit Loop dingus.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And this is what's so confusing to me is we didn't touch on this, but yeah, the text that he sends to Diane at that point is the weird smiley face and then all
in all caps.
All caps. And so as she reads it, she gets emotional, kind of almost hysterical, and says, like, I remember, oh Coop, I remember. It's kind of like trembling a little bit, and then she immediately sends the coordinates that were on the on Ruth's arm. She remembers it. And so we look, or like she opens up her purse, and we see she has a gun in her purse. And she heads upstairs, and this kind of touches on what you're talking about with Gordon, because as she heads upstairs, she kind of hesitates before she goes into the room where Gordon and Albert and Tammy are at. And like Gordon kind of gets this like funny look on his face while she's like outside of the door, and then he says, "Come on in, Diane." So I don't think they had like surveillance. I think it was just like he knew it was her,
Right.
Whether it's just his super hearing or his intuition, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Well, or maybe, maybe they had planned to meet up at that point in time anyway, though.
That's true.
But
That's true.
yeah, I agree with you. I do think that it was more of an intuition kind of thing.
Yeah. So she sits down and she says that she's going to tell them about the night that Coop visited her.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 to 4 years after the last time she had heard from Coop. And I guess just like one night he just kind of like knocked. Did she say he knocked?
No, he didn't knock.
Oh, he just walked
Yeah.
in. He was like in her living room, yeah. And she was very happy to see him. She like gave him a very big hug, and then they started talking, and he wanted to know everything, but it wasn't like he wanted to catch up. It was like he was grilling her, like he wanted to see what she knew.
Yeah.
Wanted to get as much information out of her as he
About
could.
the bureau, not like personal information. It was all about
Yeah.
the bureau.
Yeah. And she says he leaned in to kiss her, and she says it had only happened once before.
Hmm.
So that confirms to anybody speculating that Diane and Coop were once a thing. And so obviously they had a very strong, connection for her, because the exchange that she describes is very, it's awful, She says as soon as they kissed, something went wrong. She felt afraid, and then Scale Coop saw the fear in her. He smiled, and this is what I wasn't sure when she was describing. He smiled, and did it sound like he pulled his face off, or he did something?
Well, it was kind of in the way that she used her hand, and it was to me what that meant was like earlier in their series when we see Scale Coop look in the mirror and his face morphs into Bob's face for a minute.
Oh yeah,
I figured
he probably
that's
did
what
that.
happened. Yeah.
That's totally right. I wouldn't doubt that. And then yeah, he ultimately went on to rape her right after that. As we know Bob to do.
Right.
As part of his evilness. But yeah, just to touch on that, like it shows, before he was evil, they had kissed, and she had this love, and like she was so happy to see him. And so I think if that night 3 or 4 years later wouldn't have happened, I think she would have helped Coop out of love, and just out of their relationship. But now it sounds like after she describes this night that she is maybe working off of fear,
Right.
that he has some sort of leverage on her, or control or power over her.
And
she describes. Go ahead.
So since Diane appeared, I've seen people speculating that she might be influenced by Bob or another spirit because of how white her hair is, kind of like Leland's was.
Right.
And I think maybe now what's revealed in this scene that kind of makes sense.
No, definitely, because yeah, like I remember we had talked about that earlier, and we were just kind of like, nah, she's just got white hair.
Yeah.
But now that you like, it totally makes sense. Because yeah, like I think when they first had that interaction, or at the prison, we don't really know how long this is, Scale Coop has existed, and if she had met with the good Coop or bad Coop, But yeah, it all kind of confirms it here. And then she describes that he took her to an old gas station, which we all know about the old gas station. Says, yes, so she kind of like, she says that he took her to the old gas station, and then I'm trying to remember this in chronological order. She then looks at her phone again, right, with the smiley face and the all.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of like has this like moment of realization, and says, she gave the coordinates to the sheriff's station. She said that like twice.
Well, she says I sent him the coordinates. I'm in the sheriff's station, and then her hand starts shaking, kind of like Josie's was, and she says, "I'm in the sheriff's station." And then after repeating that a few times, she says, "I'm not me."
Yeah.
And then
I'm not me.
and then she reaches in her purse to grab the gun, and luckily everyone else is quick on the draw, and they fire back, and as soon as they do, she leaps out of the seat and disappears, almost kind of like in The Missing Pieces we see Philip Jeffries do that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it sounds very much like when they were kind of describing the first Blue Rose case.
Yes.
Yeah, and Tammy, like, Gordon has this very good, shocked look on his face, and then Tammy says, "Wow, they're real. That was a real tulpa."
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when we that confirms the idea. So we see her in the Black Lodge, and Mike gives her the same spiel that he gave Dougie when he appeared in the Black Lodge, and says, somebody manufactured you, and she says, "I know, fuck you." And that was too good. And then, she kind of shakes, and then her head like rips apart in a weird way, and then the seed appears, and she kind of vanishes. So, and let's touch on this for a little bit, because I guess that I missed that. I thought she was saying she gave him the coordinates to the sheriff's station, not that she was in the sheriff's station. But I could have just misheard that.
Yeah.
So
subtitles said, "I'm in the sheriff's station."
So is she Nido then?
That's my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is all, man, because this is something I know, not to get too off course here, because there's a lot of other stuff that we can get into with the episode. But last episode, there was something that you had wanted to touch on, and then afterwards you remembered that you wanted to talk about Judy and who Judy potentially was, and how we know Judy to be in the rest of the series. Do you want to touch on that now, and kind of what we know with Diane and what it could all mean?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of Fire Walk with Me, there's that monkey that's named Judy. Well, or I mean, that's kind of it. You hear the word or the name Judy kind of whispered over the shot of the monkey. It's very quick, but in Twin Peaks fashion, very bizarre. But Nido also makes chirping sounds that resemble like a monkey's, the sounds a monkey makes. And perhaps somehow she's Judy, but now that there's this Diane development, it's hard to say who she could really be.
Right. Because, I mean, you can look at it from both ways and they make sense, because it's like for Philip Jeffries to be like, you already know Judy, it would make sense for Scale Coop to know, because we talked about it being Garland Briggs. It would make sense for it to be Garland Briggs. It would make sense for it to be Diane. So I don't know. But I mean, again, like that's if it were to be Diane, that's kind of a stretch, because it's like Judy is somehow Nido, and Nido is somehow Diane. Right. So I don't know. I don't know how that would all connect, but yeah, like, because I just had like an aha moment after we recorded that last episode, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe we didn't talk about that. And that was, ended up being the thing you wanted to touch on. So I don't know. Like, I felt very like stable in that theory, but now I'm like, I really don't know. So after that, we see Coop arrive at the casino, and he's greeted by the Mitchum brothers in the lobby. And on the way, oh man, let's talk about the scene though of him like driving to like is it Laura Palmer's theme that he's like driving to?
I don't remember the piece of music that was playing. I remember when he wakes up, it's the theme to the it's
or yeah,
falling.
maybe
Uh,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but like the scene of him driving is just it's amazing because when they're leaving the hospital, like Janie E's gonna drive, and he's like, nope, let me drive.
Yeah.
And you can just see kind of how, as Coop is like, there's a sincerity to him when he's in charge. Like a lot of people when they're in this like FBI high position that Coop is, they can be pretentious or bossy,
Right.
but there's something about Coop that's very genuine, even when he's in control, and very like inclusive and nice and sincere.
yes, kind of the opposite of the guy, the Las Vegas special agent, who I just looked up. His name is
Right.
Randall Headley.
Okay, Randall.
Yeah.
All right. Good old Randall. I love his character. But yeah, like you just kind of see like Janie E is like a little like uncomfortable when he's driving, but you can just see how in control of the road he is, and like going past all these cars and stuff. And it's just a very nice moment of just kind of, again, like all these little, just quick little scenes with him at this point have just been all very reassuring of who he is as a character and how nice it is to see in this day.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Sonny Jim remarks, "Dad can drive, really
Yeah.
good."
yeah. So yeah, the he doesn't tell Janie E and Sonny Jim that they're going to Spokane, or that he's going to Spokane first, and so the Mitchell brothers are like, are we ready to go? And then so Coop kind of pulls Janie E and Sonny Jim off to the side in the middle of like where all the jackpots are, and it was a interesting scene because he's like, you see like a confliction in him while he's still trying to be genuine and sincere and honest with this family. He says like, I've really enjoyed our time together. And Janie is kind of like bewildered, like she doesn't really know what's going on. And like at some point they're like, you're Dougie, or like Sonny Jim's like, well, how does Coop describe it? He's like, we're family, right?
Yeah.
Like he's trying to like break it to him that he's not Dougie,
Right. Yeah.
But then Sonny Jim starts freaking out.
Well,
And
because
he's like, you're my dad.
What he says is, he's like, "Dougie will be back," and then he goes, "I will be back," and
yeah.
And Janie E is sort of like, "You're not Dougie," and Sonny Jim starts freaking out, and he's like, "You're my dad," and he says,
Yeah.
"I am your dad, and I love you. I love both of you." He's like, "But I gotta go."
Yeah, and he's like, I will come back. I'll walk back through that red door or something like that.
And I'll be back for good.
Yeah. And then he kind of Janie E has this kind of like moment of realization. Not really realization, because she doesn't necessarily know exactly what's going on, but she's like, "Whoever you are, thank you." And then Coop heads off. Before we move on from that scene, because there's still a lot more to discuss about this episode, but specifically with that, do you think Coop is returning, or do you think Dougie will return?
From him handing the seed to Mike, he's they're gonna make another Dougie, is what I took from that.
Yeah, me too. At first, like initially during that scene, I thought it was, some sort of decoy maybe to throw off Scale Coop, which that very well could be, but I don't think so, because the reason why I say that is because he has this like urgency in his voice, telling Mike, to make another one, and it would, on the surface you would think it's because he wants to trick Scale Coop, and they need to work fast to do that, right?
Well, that didn't even cross my mind. I just figured that he wanted to make sure that Sonny Jim and Janie were taken care of.
Right, and that's now how I feel about it, because again, with that urgency, knowing Coop's character and how good of a person he is, it would make sense for him to realize the priority in getting Dougie back to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that tone still makes sense for just simply bringing Dougie back to them as, the man that they once knew.
Right.
Which they get this like very nice version of Dougie, and it seems like other Dougie just wasn't very great. So I don't know if Janie is gonna take that.
Well,
he's gonna be all chubby again.
Hopefully, maybe this Dougie is steered in the right direction from Coop's recent good doings, I suppose, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah. So we see Coop and the Mitchum brothers in the limo, and he kind of fills them in. He's like, one of them's like, so let me get this straight. You're in the FBI. You've been missing for 25 years, and now we need to go to a small town called Twin Peaks. He's like, that's right. And they're like, we don't really. What did they say? Something about they don't.
Because he tells them that he needs to get to the sheriff's station there, and they're like, we're not really welcome in such places with law enforcement being the type of people we are. And Coop's like, well, that's about to change. You've proved that you have hearts of gold. And I love Jim Belushi's character, like, throws his arm over, around Cooper. And starts patting Robert Knepper's shoulder, and Robert Knepper just kind of like puts his hand on Jim Belushi's hand.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. I remember at the beginning of the series, like, just not really liking their characters, and now you just kind of see them as these like lovable guys that aren't, maybe don't make the best career choices, but are. Yeah, I mean, if Coop sees that you have a heart of gold, you gotta have a heart of gold, right?
Right. We went from that Douglas Jones fuck to to where we are now.
Yeah. I forgot about that line.
To every kid deserves a gym set.
Yeah. Good guys. And this is where shit kind of gets weird after this. So I was very excited for you. I mean, do you want to explain, we're back at the Roadhouse. Do you want to kind of explain what we see?
Well, the Roadhouse was proud to present the Edward Louis Severson III, and it pans over. I was like, "This is gonna be Eddie Vedder," and it was Eddie Vedder. I don't know why they changed his name. I wonder why. I wonder if that was Eddie's choice, or if that was maybe David Lynch's choice.
Yeah, because it's like it wasn't. I mean, I was like, I didn't know that was going to be Eddie Vedder at first, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. It was like a very like 2-second surprise. So it's like, is that necessary? But anyway, the infamous meme that you had sent me about the Eddie Vedder song about Coop returning in episode 15. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Well, hold on. You know what? That's actually Eddie Vedder's birth name is Edward Louis Severson.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
funny.
Guess just to make it...
I didn't know that. I do
cool.
like Pearl Jam, but apparently there's plenty to learn even when you've been a fan of a band for a while.
So the reason why I bring that up is, did we know that Eddie Vedder was recording a song for Twin Peaks? Is that why that meme existed, or is this just all okay?
He was I don't remember where we learned that from, but
okay. He probably leaked it and wasn't really supposed to.
The song,
or yeah, just the fact that he was like going to be on the show.
Yeah,
because it was all supposed to be a surprise. But I don't know. That just made me laugh. So yeah, we get a nice little number from Eddie Vedder. Do you want to kind of explain what happens after that too?
Yeah. I mean, during the song, we see Charlie and Audrey step into the Roadhouse, and Charlie orders them a couple of martinis. And as they sit down, Charlie holds up the martinis for a cheers with Audrey, and he says, "To us," or something like that. And Audrey says, "To Billy."
Yeah.
And
Stone Cold, baby, Stone Cold.
Yeah, Steve Austin. And once Eddie wraps up his song, the announcer says, ladies and gentlemen, Audrey's Dance, which is the name of the piece of score that Angelo wrote for the original series when, Audrey does her dance in one of the first episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like, that is bizarre that in universe that song is called Audrey's Dance, because when she first plays it, it's on a record player, which would be hilarious if it was just a song written about her that she had on record.
Right.
And so the band starts playing Audrey's Dance, and the whole crowd goes off to the side, and she just steps onto the dance floor and starts doing her dance for a little while. There's a ring on her finger, and we don't get a close-up of it at all, but to me, it almost looked like it might be the Owl Cave ring, but it can't be because Cooper has it. But
right.
Anyway, this dance goes on for a little while, and then one of the people in the crowd yells at another person and starts attacking him, and Audrey runs to Charlie and says, "I need to get out of here." And then it jumps from the roadhouse to Audrey looking like the complete opposite of how she was. She was kind of dolled up, and now she is in all white, and her hair's a mess, and she's just looking in a small mirror, and
in like an all white room.
Yeah. And then it cuts away, and it cuts back to the band playing Audrey's Dance in reverse, and that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. And what? Oh God, that was so crazy. And I think we should mention there was some electrical humming when it cut to her.
Yeah.
So what do you take from all that? What do you think's going on?
Well, I've seen people speculating that all of that was in Audrey's head before, and I mean, obviously something is going on there. Either she is in, maybe perhaps a psych ward or a hospital of some kind.
Yeah.
But maybe she is trapped, kind of how Josie was trapped, because she hasn't been mentioned by anyone at all outside of her and Charlie. Like none of the other characters have mentioned Audrey Horne, other than saying that she was in a coma. Did they say that she was in a coma?
No, the only way we know that is from the secret history, right?
See, I'm not even to that part yet. I'm not that far into it.
Right. I think I saw there's in one of the books or something, there's a newspaper article that says like 3 dead, 1 in coma.
Mm-hmm. Right.
After explosion.
Right. You know what? Yeah, I have seen that just from flipping through it.
Yeah. So yeah, she could still be in the coma, and maybe that's it. But I think I'm leaning towards the psych ward theory.
Yeah.
Because it kind of makes sense, if you go back to how we discussed her and Charlie's dynamic before, where he's very matter of fact when he speaks, and he has this control of her where he's reading and analyzing everything that she says. He's kind of a step ahead of her, as if he were her doctor,
right,
or her therapist, or whatever it may be. And that's just kind of how, now that I think about it, I'm like, that totally makes sense, just for how he kind of sits and his posture. And there's just something that's very doctor-esque about him. And maybe that's just his line of work, and maybe there's some overlap there or whatever. But that, I don't know, and that makes sense to me, because especially when they were talking about their relationship, and she just, if you not to belittle her character, or just paint her as crazy, but if you think about their conversations as if she were in a psych ward, and how sporadic she is, and kind of jumping all over the place, and none of it really makes sense, and how Charlie's when he gets off the phone with Tina, quote unquote, and then he's kind of looking at her to gauge her reaction almost, and he won't tell her. But But before we get too off on this theory, there is the whole sense that Andy, there is some of that story that's grounded in reality, right?
Right. Yeah. The truck with Andy, and then in the roadhouse we saw those girls talking about Billy.
Yeah.
And I mean, Audrey wasn't present, so it wouldn't make sense to have that be part of her whole, in her head thing.
Right. So maybe it's just like the setting that's different. Like maybe all of those interactions and like she knows about the story and everything and she knows about what's going on, but maybe she is just like she's not living the life that she thinks she is.
Right. Maybe.
But man, that really threw me for a loop. I'm like we just get through the episode and we're like, yes, it's all good, and then all of a sudden, like, again, it's just there's something about, and it's that same feeling I got like when Sarah Palmer took her face off, where it's just this you just feel completely lost. Like you have this like little moment, or like prior you have some sense of comfort in knowing what's going on, but as soon as those moments happen, David Lynch just like throws you into this like it's just so unsettling, and it's this like deep fear and of not knowing where you're at or what's going on. And again, yeah, like for the episode to end that way and then the music going into reverse, it's just like damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, so I see someone else has pointed out that maybe she is stuck the way that Josie was stuck in the Great Northern, and that's what the noise that Ben has been hearing is.
Oh, okay, I could see that.
But I guess
like
we can't know for
maybe,
sure, but
maybe as I had said earlier that I want to see Audrey back in those walls again. Maybe she's in the walls. Maybe she never left.
Exactly.
Maybe he's hearing Audrey there. Whoa. Man, oh man. Okay, so is that kind of what you wanted to talk about as far as like the sounds emitting? Like,
yeah.
The theories about that?
Yeah, like maybe that's just when
someone's trapped?
Yeah, that's how they have to communicate is through those kinds of sounds.
Maybe she's in the boiler room.
Maybe, perhaps.
Oh man. I hope the I forget the actor's name, but the man who played P. Martell passed several years ago. But in my mind, maybe he's just been a fish in a percolator this whole time. Maybe that's where his purgatory
in universe.
Is. Yeah. Man, yeah. I think that's kind of one of the. Do you want to talk about that as far as like things that are yet to be revealed? Like I think that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Obviously the Billy story, but definitely as far as like the sounds emitting and like what James is in the boiler room hearing and because like essentially whatever happens in the boiler room, it's not detrimental to James because he obviously goes to the roadhouse where he gets into the fight and. And then he ends up in jail, right?
Right.
So it's not like he got trapped anywhere or anything like that. So that's what I'm a little confused about. Like, what could the boiler room really be? What's down there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't really think of any solid theories.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things for sure is it being dual doors. That really adds to the speculation of what it could all be, the good and the bad, maybe. Who knows? Anything else as far as like theories or things that you're waiting to have revealed, anything like that?
I mean, there's plenty of things that they've got to wrap up in these next 2 hours, but I'm sure in its own way everything will be wrapped up as well as it can be.
Yeah.
With a little bow, but yeah, we still don't know exactly what's going on with Sarah Palmer, if she was that person that the frog moth went into back in the day, or we still got to figure out what's going on with Audrey, how evil Coop's going to be taken down and returned to the lodge, and
Yeah.
What's going on with Jerry, Ben, and Beverly, and
Laura, do you think he's gonna see Laura again? Because that was kind of his guiding light. Is like find Laura, right?
Right.
And he gets that instruction from Leland, right?
Yeah, I believe.
So, yeah, I don't know. If it sounds like they're going, it sounds like Scale Coop is probably headed towards the sheriff's station.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Oh yeah, that's his destination.
Yeah, and so, I think it all goes back to what we were saying that, what's his name? James and
Freddy.
One Punch Man.
Yeah.
They're there for a reason. I think they're there to protect Naito. Because you got to have super strength to take on Scale Coop. The dude is a monster. He can punch your
face in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you need someone who can ultimately arm wrestle him.
Right. It sounds like Freddy could definitely punch someone's face in. I think he probably went a little easy on the dudes in the roadhouse.
Yeah, he even said he did.
Yeah. So hopefully Freddy's okay in the long run, but his destiny is to be in Twin Peaks, as the fireman told him. So, one thing I wanted to touch on, this isn't really much of anything, but I wonder if you synced up the scenes where Coop is, he turns on the TV and, says, actually my mom posed this theory, so shout out to my mom, but, where he's watching the TV and it says, get me Gordon Cole, and then he goes and puts his fork in the socket.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if those scenes of Richard exploding, I wonder if those scenes sync up at all.
With the electricity?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's not a bad theory, I guess.
Yeah, and whether it's intentional or not, there's a channel, I forget, there's multiple syncs up, people syncing up these scenes, though,
mm-hmm.
where a lot of these scenes line up in weird ways, like the Sarah Palmer drinking to the woodsman saying, "This is the water, this is the well." Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's crazy. So who knows?
Right.
Well.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
Big Ed got his happy ending. So big shout out to all the Big Ed heads. He didn't have a huge role. Maybe he's the one that ultimately stops Evil Coop, though. We'll have to wait and find out.
I'm very excited to see Hawk and Coop reunite.
Oh man, me too.
Man, I really want to just rewatch this whole series. I think we might we can decide this later. But maybe we should just start from episode 1 of The Return and just go from 1 to
I say we
8.
I say we just do the entire series.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that
Yeah.
too, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's been real. I don't know. I don't really have anything else. I feel like we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, right. I guess thank you for listening. If you've made it all the way to this far, tell us what you thought. Tell us what you think is going to happen in these last 2 episodes, and if there's anything we missed, point it out to us. We want to hear about it.
Let us know.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I guess we will talk to you next week when we are sadly discussing the 2-hour finale. So that I guess that's going to be a bigger podcast because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, maybe we'll divide that up into 2 parts.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening once again. And my name's Vinny. That's Steven over there. Say goodbye, Steven.
I am the FBI.
I am the FBI. All right. Pour yourself a hot cup of Joe, and I'm going to love you. I'm going to miss you. See you next time, all right?